Hello, this is Javier Ruiz, partner at JKI. In the following interview, I talked to Alon Raphael, president and CEO of FemtoMetrix, a startup building non-destructive semiconductor manufacturing test systems for customers like Samsung, SK Hynix, and Boeing. In my conversation with Alon, we discussed what does FemtoMetrix do, how did FemtoMetrix start, how did JKI and FemtoMetrix collaborate, what's it like building a company in the semicon industry, and finally, some of Alon's insights about being the CEO of a tech startup for the past 10 years. JKI's new case study with FemtoMetrix is now available on our website, where you can find the details on how JKI helped FemtoMetrix go from proof of concept software to deploying a production quality tool in Korea, all within 10 months. There's a link to the case study in the comments section of this video, or visit jki.net to find it. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Alon as much as I did. Thank you, Alon, for your time and the ongoing partnership. Thank you, Alon, for taking the time to chat with me today. I know things are a bit hectic right now out there in the world, so I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. So the reason that I wanted to chat about basically the collaboration that JKI and FemtoMetrix had was because we have a case study coming out, and it's great. It's really well written, but we've been working on this project so hard and for so long that I felt like a conversation would add a ton of value and would allow our audience to actually learn more about our collaboration and what FemtoMetrix is doing, which is great. So maybe would you mind giving us kind of like the 5-minute pitch about FemtoMetrix, and then we use that as a starting point?
Sure. I'm thank you for the opportunity as well to do this. So FemtoMetrix is a manufacturer of quality assurance tools for the semiconductor industry. We help make microchips that go into Tesla's phones, etc.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And basically, one of the things that we talked about in the case study is the non-destructive part of your technology. So could you talk a bit about that part?
Sure. What makes us special is that we can do a lot of things that take a lot of time and a lot of expertise very rapidly, as you mentioned, non-destructively on the manufacturing line, bringing many of the benefits of the destructive, slow, and difficult to operate tools to real-time manufacturing.
That's great. And you mentioned a bit about your customers, but could you expand a bit on basically who's your customer at the end of the day?
Sure. So we work predominantly with Korea, namely Samsung, a familiar entity, and their number two in the world and top competitor, SK Hynix.
Right. Yeah. Two of the biggest names in that space. And basically, the Harmonix F tool basically gets deployed to fabs. That's the whole idea, right? It gets deployed and it runs in line in production. Correct?
Absolutely. So microchip manufacturing facilities or fabs are where our tools will be.
Right. Perfect. And yeah, there's a great picture in the case study with of your tool and running our software, which I like a lot. Yeah, so maybe to give people a bit of background, so JKI has been working with FemtoMetrix now for close to 2.5 years, and basically when we engaged, FemtoMetrix had a proof of concept system and software, and basically JKI came in and helped you guys with the software and basically re-architect the software, taking bits and pieces here and there, and basically take the system and make it deployable in really record time, which is 10 months. And within 10 months, the system was in Korea running still in an R&D fashion. But then from there, we started basically adding new features, fixing bugs. And it's been over a year and a half of that process. So maybe could you talk a bit about the starting, how FemtoMetrix got started, and then how you got to that proof of concept point?
Sure. Well, we started off in May of 2011, much like the TV show Silicon Valley, out of a dorm house. And so years of struggle and development, through the quite literal house full of robots. We managed to build a system that we deployed in France to the nuclear agency, Minitech Leti, back in 2014, which through iterations of success caught the attention of Samsung, who came in and led our A round of financing. bringing us to a place where we had a working technology and a prototype that showed that it could add manufacturing value, but not a product insofar as a tool that could operate in the high volume and high uptime capacities demanded by the world's most challenging customers.
Right, right. And if I remember correctly, even before that, you actually went back to school before founding FemtoMetrix. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. So this is this is my third company. So I was after my second one, real estate and whatnot, and doing the things that I guess people do. Then I went, it's really not a passion. What I love to do is innovate, and on some levels, I recognize on a personal level, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer. I'm not the guy that can make these things real. But what I can do is find the people who can build the relationships and um, acquire the necessary resources to give everybody who can do these things a clear directive and chance at doing something that's of unique value. So I really look at myself more as a movie producer, and I went through and found, what you might call, the in our CTO, the movie star, and in our chief operating officer, the director. And if you want to extend the analogy, in JKI, the best cameraman or woman
Right.
that could be found.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's a good point because sometimes people think that, I have to be super technical to start a company, but basically you need both, right? You really need, at least in this space, you need the technical aspect, but you also need basically the hustler and the CEO type person that is basically out there selling, out there raising money, which is, is not easy and not everybody can do it. So hats off to you and all the work that you do.
Well, thank you. If you look at all of these successful companies, they're teams.
Right.
Even Microsoft, we point to, Bill Gates is really the leader, but fundamentally he had Steve Ballmer and others behind him, Steve Jobs, another one. But what about Wozniak, especially in the early days? So it's very easy to say that these larger than life personalities are perhaps the ones that innovate, when in fact it's them helping innovators to come to new product, and it's looping it around the ability to find people that are capable of seeing very difficult projects through and caring about them, that I think enables some of these larger than life personalities to do things that perhaps others can't. It's not that they do it, it's that they find the people who have the ability to do it together.
Yeah, team effort. Yeah, that's a really good point. Could you talk a bit about basically going from that proof of concept to actually deploying the system in Korea, and what the relationship with JKI meant for FemtoMetrix?
Well, it meant everything, because all that had to happen was the most critical part of our machine. Well, the machine itself had to fail, and that was the end of everything. So it was a big leap of faith for us, independent of the money, to take years of our lives and trust something that was so core to the next phases of our success to people that have a track record, that are known to be good, but nonetheless we had not worked with.
Yep.
And I can say that there's very few decisions that, in retrospect, I feel as confident in as the one to work with JKI.
Wow, that's really great.
Well, a lot of things happened, a lot of challenges, but not with JKI's portion of what it is that needed to be done. We had, as with any new product in a challenging environment and halfway across the world, a rough landing, and all the places where we thought that we would have challenge, we didn't. That's because we went, wow, this automation software, it's really complex, it's really tricky. They only had 10 months to do it. I wonder. And that's just not a place where we had trouble. That wasn't it.
Yeah.
So to that one, I think the proof is in the pudding, about the right decision.
Wow, that's great, and I really appreciate it. And I think in the case study we talk about basically how FemtoMetrix, basically at that point you could make the decision of, we can hire 10 software engineers and control experts, or we can go with JKI, this company that it was your first time working with us. So you, as you were saying, you were not 100% sure that it was going to work. But can you talk about a bit basically that value of, you could have gone one way and hired a ton of people, or hire JKI and get stuff done quickly?
Well, as a smaller entity, speed is key. And so finding the right people, making sure that they gel, coming over and understanding what they're doing, getting appropriate management in place, et cetera, really building an organization. It can be done and it can be done rapidly, but there's going to be problems. If you go to a place where people have already sorted through those things, hire the best in class and make sure that they are understanding and caring, then all I can suggest is that you'll get a lot, and to anybody, much more value than trying to do it yourself. And in the very long term for large organizations, okay, but for people who are innovating a new product that the quality and the speed are what's important, there's nowhere better to go than JKI. At least
Right.
that's what I've heard.
No, I appreciate your comments. And yeah, I mean, every company, especially startups that I talk to, basically, that's kind of a decision that they have to make. And I mean, it doesn't mean that JKI is going to stay there forever. Basically, we can help them train people as they can hire them. But if you want something, as with the FemtoMetrix case, you want to ship something in 10 months. I think basically there's a ton of value in working with JKI because, as you said, we've done the work and we can just accelerate deployment of products.
I look at it this way. It's simple, penny wise and pound foolish. If one wants to go in and set up their own organization and pick people and do all of this in the very long term, after you've sorted through some good people or some bad people, and after you've made all the mistakes and nobody really checked this or that, the costs of it are going to be enormous.
Yep.
And then at the end, you're delayed on top of it after spending more money. It just doesn't make sense. So in the very long term, is that something that could pay out? Sure, if you're looking at a 10-year time horizon, 5-year time horizon, something like this. But if you've got a product that you're trying to innovate and you want it out to a customer and you want it done right, well, goodness, just the speed alone, every month that you're not selling a product is a month costing you money.
Yeah.
And that's a month that JKI will have paid for itself in easily.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I mean, what people can read the case study and learn more about this. But one of the things that we brought for FemtoMetrix and we bring to most of our projects is we have a ton of frameworks and already libraries that already do a ton of the things that you have to do. So we're not building stuff from scratch, which is it goes hand in hand with accelerating, getting products to market. I wanted to shift gears a bit and talk about the semicon industry because you've mentioned some of the challenges in the case study, but I wanted to get your thoughts about the semicon industry as a place to basically start a company just like you did.
Well, what I would say is don't do it. The semiconductor industry is hands down the most difficult industry in the entire world. There are geopolitical aspects, there are information secrecy aspects, there's hardware involved. Nobody in Silicon Valley likes that word, but nonetheless, when you combine it with, in addition to hardware, capital equipment, not just hardware, wow, you've literally spoken every dirty word in all of Silicon Valley.
Right.
That in mind, it's the most difficult business, and that's why nobody will do it, which is where there's opportunity.
Right.
Because if one wants a challenge and they want something that's got a lot of money flowing through, that has distinct need for new technologies, and they're willing to really struggle for a long time to have patience, perseverance, and to see it through, there's opportunity that's not present in other industries. So my recommendation would be do something easier than this. But if you're reaching for the stars, there is a sky in this industry.
Yeah, I mean that's wow. I really like the way that you put it. And one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, and if people go to the FemtoMetrix website, they're gonna see that basically as part of your board, you have people from Samsung and XK Hynix. So I'm curious to hear from you what that has meant to you, just basically having people from basically the biggest companies in the industry as part of your board, and what that has meant for FemtoMetrix as a company.
Well, having the guidance of the customer and their technological know-how such that one can build a product that's truly demanded by the market, not the product that they want to build, is the core value. Because ultimately, what the customer wants is what one needs to build.
Right.
And without having those parties involved in the development, what are you building?
Right.
So with that in mind, having Samsung, having SK Hynix, and having these parties support financially, amazing. But in terms of the voice of the customer, truly valuable.
right? So could you say that basically it kind of validates what FemtoMetrix is doing?
I would say that the confluence of large organizations, the years of development, and the fact that as much money in the eight figures goes in, um, is validation of the technology. Because in this industry or in any others, if you don't sell something for many years, why? So by having companies like Samsung, like Hynix, like Boeing, like NASA, JPL, all in some respects collaborating towards a common goal, it expresses the market, the academic, and the varied marketplace needs of a core technology.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think one of the things that was surprising to us as we started learning about FemtoMetrix was, as you were saying, having all those giants collaborating. We don't see that a lot in many industries, and it just basically speaks about the big need and the big problems that there's to tackle in the semicon industry. So,
Well, what do you do when you have an industry that's got so much money and yet no innovation? Because ultimately, the cost and risks of developing a new product are so high that even pretty big companies won't undertake it, meaning that there's plenty of opportunity, but nobody willing to try. Because who's going to bet 10 years of their life and $50 million to see if it makes sense? And ultimately, here we are.
yeah, no, that's a good point.
But if one looks at the semiconductor industry at some of the major success stories, take ASML. That's a collaboration of the industry where they all got together and said, we need this thing. And if we don't have it, it's going to be a problem, not for me, not for you, but for us.
Yep.
And when the industry supports a new technology because they feel as though it's something critical to all of them, one tends to see some success from that, provided the technology fundamentally works.
Right. Well, that's great. Those are great points. Can you talk a bit about basically what's currently happening at FemtoMetrix and where you see FemtoMetrix going over the next months or years?
Sure. So we're at what you might consider phase 3 clinical trials. Right now, we have a new drug that's just about to be approved. And once the drug is approved, well, you've got a unique compound that adds clearly a unique value in a way where there's an opportunity for, I would say, substantial growth on the basis of those years of work and dedication. So where we're at today is with a tool in the field that's just about, weeks, to be approved or purchased in a way that validates the technology and its utility beyond all doubt, triggering a cascade of other entities. Samsung is one of our key investors as well, to come in and purchase systems, knowing that there is the most rigorous challenges having already been met.
Right.
The joint development programs at these companies are amongst the most brutal and the most rewarding experiences the world can provide. And whatever goes in may have been useful, and what comes out is the best product the world could produce.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's really awesome. Because I know that right now everybody is kind of struggling with having to work from home, and basically the world is kind of paralyzed due to the coronavirus. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how do you see that impacting you and in general the startup ecosystem and the semicon industry?
Well, the semiconductor industry worldwide is somewhat like the military insofar as it's arguably the essential service, especially in foreign nations.
Right.
So that in mind, the impact on the semiconductor industry has been as simple as this: don't miss your deadlines.
Right.
Find a way. And that's actually been challenging but rewarding, as I can suggest the entire experience is. Because with that challenge comes the necessity to innovate. Things that we hadn't considered before as these challenges present become options. And ultimately, the foundations of my company, and really what I pride myself on, is the ability, even under adverse circumstances, to find clever ways to get things done. So look, in the very beginning, we had to go dumpster diving for parts, same as anybody else. And here we are a little later. And if that's what needs to be done, not proverbially, of course, then we'll find a way. And so I would suggest that while the challenge is certainly present, it's nonetheless, as I see it, an opportunity.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I like that. Maybe let's now take a step back and just talk about basically just the experience of being a CEO and the experience of founding a company. So, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of basically starting a company and basically being the CEO of a startup?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I've considered any particular challenge. I've seen the things that have come across each time somebody told me that I was stupid or crazy or it was impossible, as an opportunity. So with that in mind, when I look at a lot of the complexities that I'm in front of, and there have been many, um, I typically don't see it as a problem so much as stupid as this sounds, platitude, but an opportunity for a solution.
Hmm.
So that in mind, I would say that the hardest thing about it all is maintaining perspective and finding people who can maintain perspective,
Hmm.
because it's easy to get down. It's easy to let the letdowns really bring down, but ultimately the persistence and the tenacity and the team that allows for that, because there are hard days. We all pick each other up.
Yep.
Is what it is. I would say is the most challenging. Making sure that I can be the person that everybody needs to be, and that everybody else is doing the same, so that we through challenging times make it together.
Right. Well, that's great. That's great. And on the flip side, what would you say is the most rewarding part?
Hands down, the most rewarding part is the success that I see in the people around me,
Hmm.
and the opportunity to provide something for them that wouldn't have been there, without my involvement. So I would say that the looks on people's faces when the good things happen
Hmm.
is the number one thing, and the opportunity to meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise and have them be a part of my life in a positive way. That's on a personal level. The second thing is, every time I remember sitting in that dorm room playing guitar going, what am I going to do with my life? And then I go into that laboratory and I see one of the world's leading pieces of nanotechnology, that came out of the chaos of just a lot of bad ideas after nearly a decade. And I can remind myself, look what we did. And all those
Yeah.
people over the years that helped make that possible. Every time I look at a part, I have a memory about somebody who helped me build it.
Wow.
Something like that.
Wow. It even gave me a bit of chills. Just, I mean, for sure, looking at the machine that is worth millions of dollars, and it does basically what you guys designed it to do, and what JKI helped you guys do. It's just incredible. So I agree with that. Um, any advice for people that are either CEOs of a startup or just as you were saying, maybe sitting in their dorm rooms playing guitar or drums and saying, well, maybe I should start a company. Any advice for them?
Yeah. And I mean this jokingly, but get professional help. So that in mind, it's quite seriously, reach out to the people who know what they're doing. And ultimately, those people want business. They want you to succeed.
Right.
So if you start thinking of starting a company and you don't know what it is that needs to be done, and sorry for this, I don't mean to put you in a bad spot, but call JKI and say, hey, look, I'm thinking about building this thing. My guess is everybody will give you 10 minutes of their time just to give you some guidance and an
Yeah,
email here. Stay
for
in touch
sure.
with everybody and let the people who are really knowledgeable, really capable, help and involve them in a way that's positive. And whether it's the customer or a vendor or just somebody who's cool and knows what they're doing, keep them up to date, keep them in the loop,
Hmm.
and make sure that it's something that everybody enjoys doing. And even the hard times will be positive because, heck, we're all in this. And I would say it's really that alone that I'd recommend. Pick your people well, have patience, and be positive about even the hard times, and the rest falls into place.
Wow. Yeah, really well put. Anything that you would like to just, and as we get to the end of the interview, anything else that you like to add about basically the relationship and how was it to work with JKI?
Absolutely. This is to me one of the best decisions that I've made, because every time I boot up that system, it works.
Hmm.
and that's literally the heart of it.
Right.
So with that in mind, I can suggest that working with JKI was both one of my biggest trepidations because I wasn't sure I was making the right decision. I got advised in all kinds of ways, hire your own people, this, that, the other. And yet, when I signed on the dotted line and saw how things went, you know, I think everybody would have the same experience because ultimately, JKI, are they good coders? There's other good coders. Are they going to be, the most suave in everything? No, there's big companies that charge triple for that. What you get with JKI are people who are going to care about your project, see the needs through, and even during the most difficult of times, and I don't mean financially or otherwise, just personally, it's very difficult to work with customers halfway across the world in a different time zone who have no patience for anything aside from what they want. That's the way the semiconductor industry works. And they're right to demand it, and it's our job to provide it. But it's not JKI's job necessarily. They're not our people. And yet they did, just like our people. They provided anything needed anytime, working through those weekends, working through whatever the challenges were real time. And that's what you get with JKI, the people behind it. And that's where it is that I would say I made a good decision.
Wow, that's really good, and I really appreciate you saying that. And it's been a pleasure working with you and your team over the past couple of years, and we hope to get to work together for more. And yeah, see your successes and work through the challenges. So I want to leave it there. I really appreciate your time, Alon, and yeah, all the best. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Let me tell you a bit about what we do at JKI. At JKI, we help science and technology companies develop software and firmware for automation and control systems using a combination of LabVIEW and Python. We also help companies architect and design systems, which includes selecting the appropriate hardware and software depending on the current needs of the product or system. On top of that, we are experts at designing user experiences and interfaces that make systems look professional and be easy to use. JKI can become your software development team, an extension of your existing team. We can become advisors to your team, and any combination of those. And we always want to be your business partner. We work with large corporations and startups in many industries, including energy, automotive, semicon, biotech, and aerospace. We help these companies go from an idea or early prototype through multiple MVPs, development phases, and investment rounds, all the way to launching a system or product and going to market. Our engagement model is flexible and is tailored to the specific needs of our customers. This can include hourly services, fixed cost products and software license fees, and even equity for services agreements. If you're interested in working with JKI or learning more about how we can help your company, please visit jki.net/contact.